Tonight, your challenge is to separate what is true from what is false, what is fact, and what is fiction. To find out, you must enter a world of both truth and deception. YouTube, a world that is beyond belief.
You ever watch Cross the Rubicon on YouTube? Being a consumer of political YouTube content is a constant battle between determining truth from fiction. Let's watch a few clips.
Hate speech laws. So basically what I'm saying now is going to be hate speech at some stage.
Fiction.
Very soon. So when I'm stating facts of what's happening in Europe, it's going to be a hate crime and I will be arrested and probably fined, charged, maybe even imprisoned. That is what is happening in New Zealand.
No.
But that's the tyranny of this government, because this government is a globalist government. They believe this is a good idea, and this is, I believe, been driven by George Soros and the United Nations, obviously, and other multi-billionaires that want to destroy the West as we know it.
It's false.
You know, I want to talk about the refugees that the government is going to bring in from March next year into New Zealand, and 1,500 per year apparently. Now what they aren't telling you is that these 1,500 will be allowed to be bringing their extended families into New Zealand, so they could each bring dozens upon dozens and dozens each, because it's going to be their human right to bring their extended family members.
It's fiction.
And remember, these people, these 1,500 a year, are going to have the human right to bring in their extended family, which could be dozens upon dozens and dozens each, and you're going to pay for it.
It's false. There is a family reunification scheme allowing extra refugees to come here, but it's capped at 600 people per year, meaning each individual refugee could take in less than 3 additional family members.
And most of these refugees, these migrants, are going to be from Islamic countries. I have no doubt. These wives are just knocking out babies, little baby factories, and you know, and they're vastly outnumbering the birth rate of native populations. This isn't every country in Western Europe.
Fake news.
And yet these radical Islamists run around London and Birmingham and Manchester holding up signs saying, decapitate them who insult Allah, kill them who insult Allah. They hold up signs, and they do this with police escorts.
There's actually some truth to this one. There are extremist Muslim groups in the UK who have organised protests, and they should be condemned. What Lee neglects to mention is that the strongest condemnations are coming from British Muslims. Ashgar Bakhari of the Muslim Public Affairs Committee said that police should have stopped a London demonstration as the people behind it were advocating violence and do not represent British Muslims. Bakhari had this to say to the BBC News website.
The placards and chants were disgraceful and disgusting. Muslims do not feel that way. I condemn them without reservation. These people are less representative of Muslims than the BNP are of the British people.
The globalists have started a massive, gigantic power grab, and they are changing laws under the guise of this COVID-19 pandemic to steal power.
A total fabrication.
And I believe, like I've said in my many videos, that Jacinda was put in place by outside powers.
No.
Jacinda is being controlled. This is what I believe. She is being controlled by the United Nations. She is being controlled by possibly the CCP. And a big hand as well from Obama and the Clintons and so many other people on the Democratic side of the political fence in the United States. Angela Merkel, Macron, Trudeau also has a big hand in what is happening in New Zealand.
That's just not true.
Europe and its people are being replaced via mass migration.
This one was invented by a writer.
The government we've got in New Zealand now is a Marxist government, a cultural Marxist government, with Jacinda Ardern as Prime Minister, and Labour are communists.
The right, from mainstream conservatives through to the more extreme fringe, like to make a big deal out of the fact that Jacinda Ardern was president of the International Union of Socialist Youth a few years back. But Ardern has been in power for nearly a full term and hasn't taken the means of production into collective ownership. As usual, the majority of the economy remains in private hands. Ardern ruled out implementing a capital gains tax so long as she's Prime Minister, and disregarded the tax working group advice to implement a taxation regime that would shift the tax burden from those on low incomes to those on high incomes. She also disregarded the advice of the Welfare Experts Advisory Group, who recommended progressive reforms in that area. New Zealand's minimum wage remains below a living wage. If Ardern is a socialist, she's not a very good one.
And this is the madness of the world we live in, because of political correctness has emasculated men.
No.
Political correctness has destroyed the white man. It's emasculated the white man. The white man has no voice anymore. And it might sound racist, but I think it's just a fact. That's my take on it. And the white man has no voice.
Sometimes opinions are just not facts.
But now it's black majority against, I think, about 8 or 9% of the population white. Nobody cares. So it's going to be a black massacre against the white South African farmers, who basically have built that country and made South Africa very, very rich. And and it looks like South Africa in the next, say, year, 2 years, maybe 5 years, whatever, it's there's going to be some kind of civil war leading to a genocide by the blacks against the whites.
So firstly, South Africa was made rich in large part by the labour of its black majority.
It was the white man, the Dutch, mostly Dutch, and the British in South Africa that built that country. They built their cities, they built their infrastructure, and they built an economy and made that country rich. And now it's all going to be taken back. And once it's taken back by the blacks, and the whites are gone, and the land is all redistributed by these communists, guaranteed the blacks are going to starve in South Africa, and there's going to be foreign aid are going to be flooding in there, and it's just going to turn into Zimbabwe.
Secondly, it's impossible to say categorically that this one is false because it's a prediction. But based on the current situation in South Africa, it's a prediction that's unlikely to become true.
And most other, it just baffles me. It baffles me why the world is quiet on South Africa, where farmers are being killed. I think there's been hundreds, possibly thousands of white South African farmers been murdered in their own homes. Never even makes the news.
The idea that there's some kind of genocide of white people going on in South Africa is a myth that's become popular on the far right, after being promoted by people like Lawrence Southern. It doesn't hold up to fact-checking though. The claims are often attributed to Genocide Watch, an organisation that was founded to predict, prevent and punish genocide. That organisation has stated though, white genocide is not going on in South Africa. South Africa does have a very high murder rate. It's a dangerous place to live. But the murder rate for white farmers is lower than that of the general population. And in the majority of cases, these murders are not racially motivated.
I hope you like my hat for this special video. And please like, please subscribe, leave a comment and share this video everywhere. Enjoy this. We know they have a secret accord to take over the world and screw us all. 'Cause they don't really care for freedom, do they? But Trump was elected and Britain was out. They lost their momentum and some of their clout. Soros, Bill Gates, Obama's, Macron, Merkel, Clinton's and Jacinda. How they fooled ya, how they ruled ya, how the media, how they've lied through their teeth to us all. Trudeau is in there and he is so vain. Biden is too but can't remember his name. The Dems don't care, Michelle Obama will replace him. There's a blaze of truth in my every word, that COVID-19 is a hoax that I've heard. The globalists and the UN will enslave you. How they fooled ya, how they rule ya, how the media, how they lied through their teeth to us all. They've lied to us.
It's false. If you put your lies to music, they are still lies.
Now, Jacinda has made her speech yesterday in the United Nations in New York, and she's used the new term of fierce nationalism. Not nationalism anymore, not patriotism, people who love their nations and like to preserve them as they are. Now it's fierce nationalism. And she's basically indicating that she wants the world to be as one. She wants the world to be a borderless world. That's what she wants. And that is going to destroy Western nations. It's going to destroy Western democracies. But that's what she wants, and that's what people like her want. Most world leaders around the world have been corrupted by globalists. And this is what they've signed up to in the United Nations Global Compact, to flood their own nations with people.
It's false. The data doesn't back up this claim. While Ardern did once use the phrase borderless world in the context of talking about climate change, the government she leads has issued fewer residency visas than the previous National League government, and that was the case before the pandemic. Labour campaigned on reducing immigration, and whether you agree or disagree with that policy, it's one on which they followed through.
Now, I don't even talk about Byron Clark. I don't even talk about him.
Well, I know that one is false.
And this man's crackers. This bloke probably lives with his mum. He's in his 30s, and he probably lives with his mum. He's probably got no girlfriend. You know, he's probably never been out of his bedroom. That's why he's so good on the computer. So it just goes to show they're insane. And his name is Byron Clark. I wasn't going to mention his name, but I am now, because he's always mentioning my name. He's on Twitter. And I know it's pointless even having a conversation with these people, because they are so far gone, because they are far left activists. It's like they've got a disease that's much worse than COVID-19 itself. Now, from what I've been told, this Byron lives with his mum, and apparently he's even married. Would you believe such a weed of a man is even married to a woman? It just makes me wonder what kind of woman marries a man like that. What kind of woman can be with a man like that? He's male, but he's not a man. You've got to question his rationale, his mental state. But that's Byron Clark. He's a coward. This man, he's male, but he's not a man at all. He cannot consider himself a man. Just sitting behind his keyboard like a spotty little kid, eating burgers all day and crisps. This lame excuse for a man, for even a human being. Byron Clark. He's just a weedy little nerd. That's what I believe. He's a weedy little computer geek. That's what he is.
I get told by Lee's fans that I should debate him. If I am so correct, they say, then surely I would win. So why am I refusing a debate? But there's no value in a debate with someone who believes so many false things. Asking me to debate a man who believes that the United Nations is run by an unholy alliance of radical Islam and cultural Marxism is like asking a biologist to debate a creationist, or an astrophysicist to debate a flat earther. I'm reminded of a quote by Jean-Paul Sartre. It's a quote about anti-Semitism. Now, Lee claims to not be an anti-Semite, and I'll take him at his word on that, even if he has promoted a conspiracy theory that no doubt originated with anti-Semites. I'll explain why I think this quote is relevant in a moment.
Never believe that anti-Semites are completely unaware of the absurdity of their replies. They know that their remarks are frivolous, open to challenge. But they are amusing themselves, for it is their adversary who is obliged to use words responsibly, since he believes in words. The anti-Semites have the right to play. They even like to play with discourse, for, by giving ridiculous reasons, they discredit the seriousness of their interlocutors. They delight in acting in bad faith, since they seek not to persuade by sound argument, but to intimidate and disconcert.
It is their adversary who is obliged to use words responsibly. I have fun in these videos. There's a lot of jokes and sometimes wacky costumes or set dressing, or a local actor who dresses as a werewolf. These things don't actually add anything to my argument, but when I do make an argument, I always back it up with citations. You can find my sources linked in the description. Well, except for the ones for the books. Try your local library. When you watch Across the Rubicon video, you almost never find a citation, and if you do, it's usually not from a reputable source. Since they seek not to persuade by sound argument, but to intimidate and disconcert. This also sounds applicable.
Now, I did say to Byron, and I don't mind saying this, that if you carry on, I will confront you, because I know where he lives. I will confront you with my camera in hand, and I will film what is going to be said between us. I did say that, and I think that's fair, so he can't make any accusations against me.
It's more than just coincidence that Sartre's words from 1945 can be applied to the far right in 2020. 75 years on, the method remains the same. It's just the target that's changed. In his 2019 book, The New Faces of Fascism, Populism and the Far Right, historian Enzo Traverso writes that in the West we have a kind of cultural memory of the Holocaust, which means anti-Semitism, while it still very much exists, will never again be a winning political strategy. There's no equivalent cultural memory for Islam, meaning the far right can use Islamophobia, a more socially accepted prejudice, to advance their aims.
They have abandoned the old cliches of classical racism, even though their xenophobia is indeed directed against immigrants or populations with post-colonial origins. Second, Islamophobia, the core of this new nationalism, has replaced anti-Semitism. When political leaders unanimously condemn anti-Semitism in the most intransigent terms, and at the same time endorse anti-migrant xenophobia, this completely wipes out the virtues of Holocaust memorialization.
It shouldn't take a tragedy for us to recognise the harms of prejudice. But in the aftermath of the Christchurch shooting, views like the ones expressed in the clips I've shown are becoming less acceptable, though as you've seen, YouTube is still happy to give them a platform. In the months following that event, a Christchurch businessman threatened to destroy mosque after mosque until I'm taken out. Deborah Hart, chair of the New Zealand Holocaust Centre, had this to say.
These kind of comments and the beliefs that underpin them have no place in New Zealand. Words matter. The Holocaust, and indeed the attacks against the Muslim community on March 15th, did not begin with these acts. They began with words that went unchallenged, and that ultimately is what leads to such events.
That man, as you might expect, holds me in quite low regard due to the work I do countering racism. He likes to gloat that he makes a lot more money selling his Trump-style make our dern go away hats than what I receive from Patreon. I pointed out that I'm in the middle of a fundraiser and have pledged to donate half my Patreon earnings for June, July and August to Operation Not Forgotten, which is resettling asylum seekers from Australia's offshore detention centres. I challenged him to match the donation that I'm making. Unsurprisingly, he was unwilling to do anything that would help refugees. But we did come to an agreement. If I can raise $1,000 for this cause, he'll donate $1,000 to suicide prevention. If you support me on Patreon in August, even if just for that 1 month, you'll be making your donation go twice as far. It's not my place to say whether this charitable act absolves Mike Allen of his actions. He made those comments before the shooter had even gone to trial, while the events were very much current. And the young man arrested in relation to a threat against the same mosque in the lead up to the 1-year anniversary of the shooting was someone who followed his Facebook pages. It's up to New Zealand's Muslim community to decide when and if they want to forgive Mike Allen. I've criticised ACT Party leader David Seymour for taking money from this man, money that he still hasn't returned and which may well be helping fund ACT's current election campaign. But if a suicide hotline can take this money and do good with it without compromising their values, I'm happy to see that happen. Thanks for your support as always, and remember, don't believe everything you watch on YouTube. Hey, I got a pizza delivery for the Wolfman. Lucky Castle. Getting a real unsolved mysteries kind of vibe. Yeah. Action. That one is simply not true.
That's right.
That one is simply not true.
Nice.
Serious.
Very serious.
Serious political video.
Very serious. There's nothing weird about this whatsoever.